Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another episode review from the classic original Are You Afraid of the Dark television show. And this episode comes from season 7, the final season. It was written by Peggy Sarlin and directed by Mark Soulard. And the episode in question is The Tale of the Laser Maze. I have to say, off the bat, this is one of the most bizarre episodes of the entire show, bar none. I have only seen this episode twice. The first time, it was a casual watching experience about 8 months ago when I was watching the show through just in a casual experience, not trying to make reviews on it or anything. Just wanted to kind of experience some episodes I never got to watch or maybe didn't remember watching at all. And Laser Maze was in that batch of episodes. And the first time I watched it, I was asking myself, what am I watching? Why am I in a fever dream? But I had fun with it. I was laughing and I thought it was very entertaining. But this go around, I noticed a lot more flaws than I did before. And I officially have put this episode in the terrible camp. This is hands down one of the worst Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes I've ever seen. From pretty much solely execution. I think the concepts are kind of fun. I'm kind of getting way ahead of myself. But when it comes to execution, this has to be one of the most poorly handled episodes in the whole show, bar none. It's kind of flabbergasting. I've seen defenders of this episode from time to time online say that, hey, this is a genuine so bad it's good episode. And I can kind of understand that. This episode does have a lot of over-the-top comedy going for it. And some deadpan humor that I think could land for a lot of you and make it entertaining. But to say that this thing is good, I can't. I really can't. I can't even say that it's mid. I can't even say it's bad. This is just terrible. If you have not seen an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode before, please do not start with this episode. This will turn you off from wanting to watch everything else, I feel. Or if you weirdly like it, you're going to think that every episode is like this. Please don't. But it sure is an experience. So I guess I will give this a recommend if you're looking for niche comedy, because I think it will deliver that for you. But other than that, yeah, no, not recommended for me. So let's get into the plot overview without giving too much away, okay? So the episode starts off with the Midnight Society as usual, but this is the season 6 and season 7 Midnight Society group. They're not the same group that started from season 1 that mildly adapted and changed throughout the first 5 seasons. This is pretty much a completely brand new group, maybe with 2 carryovers from the final season, from the original run of season 5. You have the old leader's younger brother and another girl that was like his best friend. And this new team of Midnight Society members come in with some really weird stories. And this is one of them. One of them, kicks off the story with this. And it sets up pretty much immediately with these 2 fraternal twins named Kara and Ashley. They're like high school chicks. And they're doing Taekwondo. And just fighting each other. And the Taekwondo instructor is, watching them. And one of the sisters, Ashley, who's played by Laura Vandervoort, who you might recognize from Goosebumps, playing one of the lead characters in Deep Trouble, Shayna. And then she plays Nadine in the Haunted House game. So that's always good to see, right? When you see characters or actors of characters that you recognize from Goosebumps, at least for me. But Ashley's clearly the better Taekwondo competitor. And as they're done with the match, they're chatting in the hallway, walking up, and Ashley's kind of bragging to Kara about how good she is. And Kara's like, well, I'm good at something, and I'm going to beat you at something one day. And the 2 end up at the top of this, like, ramp hallway thing. And there's this man with glasses and a goatee wearing this really early 2000s future-esque outfit. And his name is Drake, and he has a business card, and he says, hey, I've been watching you 2. That's kind of creepy and weird, but okay. And he's like, I want you 2 to experiment in this new game called the Laser Maze. And hear me out. This is going to be a fun, experience. You 2 are pretty much prime candidates. you're athletic, you're go-getters, you're smart. We only pick the best to experience this. So the two are like, okay, yeah. And Kara takes it as a competition. She's like, I bet you I'll be better than you at Laser Maze, Ashley. And Ashley's like, all right, bet, right? So the next thing, happens where they end up at this really cool like laser tag type of place, but there's a bunch of futuristic gadgets everywhere, and the two twins are like gawking at this, futuristic technology. They've never seen anything like this before. There's like the guy Drake, he's walking around with a touch screen, like an iPad, before iPads were even a thing. And they see all these computers, and they see these charts with like players and icons and stuff, and glowing glitzy lights. And Drake's like, all right, well, welcome to the Laser Maze. And he kind of explains that the Laser Maze is this like international or intergalactic game that these two have been selected to play. And the two think it's like really cool. It's pretty much like laser tag, except they have the lasers on their eyes and they like shoot it with their eyes. And they have to navigate strobe lights throughout these mazes and obstacles like, barrel drums and stuff. And Drake's, he gathers their statistics, like their height, weight, and he has like a computer showing them and like, their attributes and skills, and pretty much sends them off to play the game. Well, in the game, they have, I think, to score till 3, and then once that happens, the round resets. So Kara and Ashley are playing, and Kara ends up winning the match. And once that happens, Ashley ends up disappearing like in thin air, and Drake, congratulates Kara. And Kara is like, well, what happened to Ashley? And Drake's like, well, alpha version of Ashley has been sent back, and we're now going to introduce you with a beta version to see if she's better. And Kara's like, well, I don't want to experience this. And she comes to realize that this Ashley clone beta version isn't really her sister. So after having a close call with that, she realizes that she has to go find Drake to get to the bottom of this and figure out what's really going on. So Kara ends up like wandering around the laser maze and ends up finding like a secret room. And inside the secret room, she sees Drake overlooking a computer, and her sister Ashley is laying on the bed. And let's just say, I kind of went over this specific detail, but there was another fight where Kara ends up losing. That's how she ends here, right? I skipped over that part. But Kara, she's in the room, and Drake's referring to her as like an alpha version. And Kara's like, where am I? And Drake's like, well, this is the place where we come to improve players. And he kind of goes into this origin story of sorts, but very vaguely. He's like, he's been recruited by this intergalactic agency to recruit the top players throughout the known galaxy, I guess. And he's tasked with creating the best players to present to the people that run this game. And that's why he has the job that he has. He's trying to find the perfect balance between, alpha versions, beta versions, Charlie versions, so on and so on. And he pretty much is making robotic clones of these two girls to try to find the perfect balance. And Kara's caught off guard, and she's told to lay on a bed, and she notices that something seems off with her sister Ashley. And there's a stipulation that Ashley, her alpha form, which is her real body, is going to eventually like pretty much die because of this cloning process that Drake is doing to her. And Kara realizes that before it's too late, she needs to do something to, have Ashley, come out of this, right? So there's a whole thing with Drake getting distracted by a beta version of Ashley coming through the other side that loses. And you get this sense that that Drake isn't that good of like a model maker, right? And the two girls manage to get off their beds, and after talking with each other, and they come up to Drake and make a proposition. He says that if he loses in a fight to them, they get to go free, and and if he wins, he can take them off to his masters or whatever the case may be, because they are the alpha versions and they're the real versions of themselves. They're always going to be better than the betas and Charlies. And Drake kind of understands that. It's like, all right, I'll take you up on that. So Drake goes into the laser maze with Ashley and Kara, and the two end up working together to try to put a stop to Drake. And there's a revelation with Drake. You learn what he really is, and is he a person? Is he inhuman? What is he? You learn that. And the two sisters kind of come together, and you get a corny cliche ending wrapping up the story. And then, of course, the episode ends off with the Midnight Society closing out, and that's essentially what you're going to expect out of the Tale of the Laser Maze. So, let's get into some positives. I really have none with this, but I do have like two big ones I can put out. The setting to this episode is so early 2000s and it's very dated, and that is a negative. I'm going to start off with that. It is a negative. But it looks so cool and it's so memorable that I have to give it to the show. It is so... I don't know how to describe it. If you've ever seen the Scholastic Animorphs television show with like how they made the hangout for the Animorphs team, it kind of feels like that almost. But there's so many futuristic gadgets that just seem kind of like on the nose with like today's technology that I get some weird enjoyment out of it. Now, I will say the strobe lights are pretty much seizure inducing. So if you have like epilepsy or something or photosensitivity and you go to watch this episode, there is no warning in the front of it. And there's constant strobe lights inside of the laser maze. So be warned. That is kind of annoying. But setting was pretty cool. It's just a really cool setting. I don't know what else to say. Have you ever been to like a traditional laser tag place that's like indoors? You got black lights and mirrors everywhere. There was a place where I'm from growing up. I went there all the time. It was called Laser Quest. This place reminds me of that, and it just pokes at my nostalgia. So I really dug it, even though it's pretty much set not quite in the laser maze the entire episode, but it was still entertaining enough, right? And I'll have to give it to the actor who played Drake. I don't know his name, but he was so over the top. And his line delivery is so deadpan that it's hilarious. It's genuinely hilarious to see this man act. I have a ball with his character. Not necessarily in the writing or what his plot is for these kids. It's really dumb. But there are some scenes where he's just scene chewing throughout the entirety of it, and it's absolute gold. And I guess the whole sibling connection with Kara and Ashley does feel a little more whole. You start them off being kind of at odds with each other, always being in competition, and then they learn that maybe it's better to work together. Kind of corny and cliche, but that's pretty much all the story brings for their characters. And it's fine. It's a good, decent character arc. And I think Kara ultimately is pretty much the main character because she learns that, even though she's not as good as Ashley in Taekwondo, she is better than her at other things. And she does get that validation. And she is the one that branches out to Ashley, ends up saving her. So she has more of a character growth arc than Ashley does. So if you're looking at it from which twin should you plug yourself into the main character for, it's definitely Kara. So I do dig that too. But other than that, this episode is one big dilapidated mess. The story makes about as much sense as veggie burgers. Why? Why? I've always thought that veggie burgers are so unnecessary. If people wanted to eat tofu or, eat black bean burger meat, imitations, just eat the black beans. Just eat the tofu. Why make it into a burger? That's what this feels like. This just feels like a cool concept that did not need to be a story, but they went ahead and made it anyway. There's pretty much no correlation to how this story starts off. These girls are just playing Taekwondo with each other in like a competitive competition, right? This weird guy who you don't even see in the audience has said, hey, I was watching you. Let's take you off to this random place where you've been randomly selected to play this intergalactic game. It's so random. There's nothing coherent about that. And when you get there he's just like, all right, well, let's play the game. And then Ashley disappears, and it takes a while to figure out what's going on with her. And then when you realize that he's just making robot clones of these girls to try to get the perfect player for this game, it's really dumb. If Kara's that good, or if humans are this good at whatever activity that you're recruiting them for, why not just take them, abduct them, and ship them off to the intergalactic space station where these owners of this game are, and just have them play it there? Why are you making robot clones? This just makes no sense. And even the explanation the episode gives you is really dumb. And that leads to the climax of the story. The whole thing with Drake, that's left field. I guess it's a twist. Kind of funny, but still registers as a wet fart. It's really unnecessary. There's nothing about this story that makes any coherent sense. It's just legit all over the place. It's full of, like, chock full of one-liners and random futuristic gadgets. It's trying to distract everything in its power to distract that there's no story going on here. And it's pretty bad. I've already talked about how annoying, like, the strobe lights can be, and how, even though the setting is cool, it does have its irritations to it. Like the robot stuff. There's some really bad ADR with the robots, like especially Robot Ashley. For some reason, Laura Vandervoort, she's a pretty decent actress in her Goosebumps episodes, but in this episode, when she's playing Ashley, I don't think she can act. I'm like, did this girl forget how to act? And then when she's playing the robot version of herself, it's even worse. It's so bad. Oh my Lord. I don't know if Mark Soulard was trying to, like, get her to act stiff, but, like, even her faces when she's, like, in pain look cringy. She's not good in this episode whatsoever. It's really poorly done, right? And it's kind of hard to see. When I think about Laura Vandervoort, I've seen her in, like, shows like Bitten. She's, like, really good in that. I liked her, like I said, in the Goosebumps episodes. But here, this is easily the worst acting performance I've seen her give. Maybe next to the Disney Channel original movie, My Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire. Yeah. So, kind of a shame. And I would say that the whole concept, not just the lack of story. The story itself is a big old problem. Probably the biggest one. But the concept. This is so offensively dumb. When you sit down and try to process what the story is trying to tell you, at the core of it, you have two sisters coming together, overcoming competition with each other, trying to be better and learn to work together and overcome obstacles. And I think that the laser maze is an overt obstacle they have to overcome, right? That's fine, but when you break down the concept of horror, right? What is horrifying about this? Nothing. Nothing in this episode is scary. Nothing in this episode is remotely dark, minus the fact that Drake plans on cloning these girls until their alpha versions, which is their real life essence, expires, which I guess is dark. But the execution is so poorly done in that. And that's part in due to a bad story script and bad acting from some actors here. The execution of the concept just falls flat on its face. The whole climax of Drake fighting these girls is so ridiculous. It's over the top, it's campy, it's fun, but it is pretty asinine. Nothing about it, in terms of its concept, is redeemable. All said and done. How do I feel about the Tale of the Laser Maze? Well, I've already kind of summed it up pretty poetically. This is kind of like a veggie burger. Just go eat the black beans. Go eat the tofu. Why go eat the black bean tofu burger? It's trying to force itself to be something that it really isn't. It's trying to imitate something that doesn't really exist. At least the theme and the core heart of it is there. At least it has a cool setting. But everything else, minus some mild character performances of Drake and stuff, it's a complete wash. This episode is another one of those examples, like Hungry Hounds, that should have just been scrapped on the cutting room floor. Why this got greenlit, how this got greenlit, is beyond me. It's pretty dumb. And Peggy Sarlin, I don't mean offense on your name when I say this, but this was terrible. This story was honestly awful. I want to see if there's an original script for this. I highly doubt we'll ever see the light of day of it, even if it does exist. But I want to see what was written on paper here. Maybe it could be studio meddling. It could be editing. It could be Mark Solar chopping the script up. I don't know, but something did not register here. And the only thing that did was a drop in the toilet bowl. This needs to be flushed down the toilet. This was pretty awful. However, I'm going to reserve myself from giving this lower than a 2 out of 5 stars, if only because of those redeeming factors, elevating it in the F tier over the others from this show, or others from like Goosebumps or other IPs that I have at like a 1.5, because at least this is entertaining, but it's still entertaining in like the wrong ways. So from a 0 to 5 star basis, I settled on a 2 out of 5 stars and gave this a high F. I could have been a little more fair on it and put it in the bad territory if the story was a bit better, if it was a bit coherent, if it was less all over the place, but it just wasn't. And the concept is just not great at all to begin with. It should never even have been made. But with that aside, it's not the worst thing ever from this show. I have yet to talk about that, but it's down there. It's down there. This is pretty awful. I will not recommend this to anyone, to put it out there bluntly. So, yeah. That's my thoughts on The Tale of the Laser Maze. Let me know down in the comment section if you've seen this episode before. Do you love this? Do you hate this? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.